Actually, I have a question for Mary Ann. You'd mentioned that initially 2 places had said they wanted to publish it. You just talked about why you didn't go with one of them. What was the issue with the other?
Oh, the other publisher, small issue-oriented publisher again, had a pretty good reputation, but, and this is just, they were in danger of losing their funding because they were tied to a university, and university presses are very reputable in terms of the work they take in. You can believe that somebody has really picked a good book, but as a matter of fact, they did fold.
So that was something in your own research when they came back to you? You just researched them and you found it out on your own?
Yes.
They probably wouldn't offer that to you?
No, nobody said, you know what, we're in danger of folding. But it happened to be, you know, just what I was learning from other presses going along, and it happened to be an article about the current state of small presses that I read in Poets and Writers magazine, that happened to point out that several of these people who were acquisitions editors, the editors who look at the stuff as it comes in and decide if they're going to publish it, were worried about their jobs in the current economic climate. And I saw something from the acquisitions editor from the small publisher. And it was something that we talked about then directly, and she said, yes, we're in trouble, so are a lot of presses. You know, how stable do you feel? She said 50-50.
One thing I did want to add to that too is that, as Mary Ann kind of mentioned, just to always do your research no matter what you go with, traditional or otherwise. One thing I didn't mention here is that there was another manuscript that I submitted to a publisher that they accepted, and it turned out to be something of a scam, but it locked me into a 7-year contract for that manuscript. So just be aware. So,
I have a question about that manuscript submission. Do you have to wait until you get a rejection letter to send it out to another editor or publisher? Or?
It depends, I guess. Anybody want to?
Yeah, just.
well, usually the writer's market, and when they're listing the defense we're using, says whether or not this publisher accepts simultaneous submissions. If they do, then they don't mind you sending them something that you've already submitted elsewhere.
Do you ever have a scenario where you can pit one against the other? Well, they're going to offer me this. Can you top that offer kind of thing?
I think that's a move. I wouldn't try it because I'm a
I don't
nobody.
know.
If I was a bigger name, then I would try
Not
that.
our experience. I don't know if it's somebody famous or.
I don't know what the protocol is. I mean, if it's sneaky and you see that, or if it's, you know, something that only the big guys can get away with. Or
They want to know if it's a simultaneous submission.
Oh,
You
they
can
do.
do it, but they want to know, and then, yeah, like the market guy will tell you if they accept it or not. And sometimes that helps them look at it a little faster, but.
yeah. Well, I mean, to wait for 9 months and then not submit it to a second. Wow.
In my experience, because I became such an expert, which we probably all are, in query letters, chapter submissions, and then submitting full manuscript, a lot of agents, even on their websites, will kind of say, well, when you're in the query process, we don't mind. But once we accept your full manuscript, we want what's called exclusivity. They will ask you purposely to agree that you're going to exclusively only show it to them. At that point, I would never cross that line, because they are spending a significant amount of time thinking about your book, all this background work that we've all mentioned that they might be doing, and they ask you for a certain amount of weeks, usually anywhere from 2 to 4 to 6, which is nothing to wait once they've got it all in their hands. So when I was sending out query letters, I sent out 10 at a time. When I got to the point where I had 10 agents or 10 presses I wanted to send it out to, I'd send them out. When I got to the point where they rejected or asked for more chapters, I'd try to send out another 5 or 10. I just kept trying to keep things out there. I wanted to mention one other thing too about, we were all talking about kind of cover art and control. Kind of a general rule that I've found is cover art, typeface, editing, and control. That's one of the positives of the smaller versus bigger house scale. Where I ended up was in the medium. I have this press that's been running for 35 years and has a great reputation. They're not very big, but they have a lot of reach, that university level press. There were smaller presses that I might have gotten a little bit more control out of, but as I mentioned, for me there were a couple of pitches. And then the big publishing houses that are considered the most lucrative, because probably an agent will have then gotten you a publishing deal, the amount of control keeps going down as you go up that scale. You get more and more people who are involved in your work and might be able to even, a lot of big publishing houses will change your title because they feel it will market better, even if you love your title. So, there's another question.
Yeah, I'm always confused about should you go to the agent or to the editor? Could you help me?
Here's my rule, I guess, and everybody else can pitch in to decide how they decide to do it, but I decided that I was willing to wait to spend the time to learn how to try to get an agent. It was worth the risk. I'd been writing this for 3 years. I paid out of my own pocket for my MFA, partially. And I thought I had a good chance of being that crossover book. So I went strictly toward the agents first. And some people will tell you, query the smallest ones first because they're most likely to publish you, and I didn't do that. I queried the smaller, newer agents and the biggest dream agents at the same time. I didn't fit the model of what supposedly you hear, that the biggest dream agents won't even respond. The bigger agents generally responded and took my whole manuscript and were the ones that thought, boy, this would be great if I could only figure out how to place it. So I guess it depends on what you're after. If you want to get into print faster for some reason, maybe going to the presses that you research might be a faster route, but that's not always true either. If any one of those agents who almost accepted my book had taken it, I probably would have gotten a much bigger advance. It might have been 4 to 10 times as much as I got paid for my medium press. So I guess it's time. There's no right way to do it. A lot of people told me too, you really need to get an agent for this book. So I felt like I was somehow jumping off the right track by going directly to publishers. But it was absolutely the right track for me when the publishing project was completely matched to my subject matter. So wherever you find that match, I would say do both. There's no harm in trying to do both simultaneously. And you'll learn so much about how to approach agents and editors.
Yeah, and I don't think any publishing house is going to have a problem if you contact them and ask, do you accept unagented submissions? So yes or no, and then you do as you wish. And I do know one thing is this: if you do approach an editor, you know, you're talking about getting more money if you have an agent. If you have a publisher who has interest, you're going to have a better time getting an agent too. If they know that there's interest, less work for them.
Yeah, that's a good point you make. Some publishers do not accept unagented submissions. They want somebody else to play gatekeeper first. And you know, what I have learned, you can view the agents because they sell books as the evil part of publishing, the commercial part. But what I've learned is they love books. And a lot of them are becoming unpaid editors, really. The publishing houses are shrinking, just like a lot of businesses and models in our current economic state. A lot of them are just as good of editors as they are agents, but they have to know that they can sell your book to be in the agent role.
A lot of them used to be editors.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, I'm talking about books, the first 5 pages.
Yeah.
Noah Lukeman, he's actually the agent, and for you writers, I recommend that book.